Hey everyone! Tonight we're diving into forgotten daily rituals of post-war Britain. Not the dramatic headlines of reconstruction and rationing, but the gentle rhythms of life. The tea breaks, the laundry days, the soft sounds of coal fires and wireless radios. You might think it was all hardship and grey streets, but trust me, there was a quiet poetry in the ordinary. If you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a quick like or even a subscribe. It helps more than you know. I'm always curious where you all are listening from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Love seeing our little global community connect through these stories. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture yourself stepping into Britain just after the Second World War. The cities are marked by the scars of bombings, yet life continues in the most human of ways, through the comforting repetition of daily routines. It is in these small gestures, these quiet habits, that people find stability. You can almost hear the creak of front doors as neighbors step out to greet the morning, coal smoke curling gently from chimney pots against a pale sky. The world might still be recovering, but inside each home there is warmth, resilience, and ritual. You find yourself in a narrow terrace street, where the bricks are darkened with soot, but curtains hang neatly in every window. A woman leans on her broom at the doorstep, sweeping dust and gossip in equal measure. She nods to a passerby, and you feel the sense of community woven through these tiny acts. Have you ever noticed how it's the smallest things, a nod, a smile, a shared word, that give a neighborhood its heartbeat? Step further into one of these homes. The hallway smells faintly of damp wool coats and coal dust, but beyond it the kitchen is alive with sound. The kettle begins to whistle, a sharp note cutting through the soft ticking of a clock on the mantel. Tea is not just a drink here. It is a ritual, a reassurance, a way of saying to yourself and others, we are still here, and we will carry on. Children stir upstairs, pulling on thick woolen socks and cardigans that scratch just a little at the wrists. They tumble down narrow staircases, laughter echoing as they jostle for their place at the table. A slice of toast, browned unevenly at the fire, is handed out with a smile. Can you smell it? The faint tang of coal smoke clinging to the crust, the butter spread thinly because it must stretch, but still melting into the bread with warmth. In another house, an elderly man lowers himself into a chair by the hearth. He sighs as he strikes a match, coaxing a reluctant fire into flame. His hands are rough, darkened by coal dust, but his movements are slow and steady, practiced over decades. For him, the ritual of tending the fire is more than just warmth. It is memory, continuity, the link between days. And outside, the streets are already stirring with footsteps. You hear the squeak of prams, the rumble of bicycle wheels, the clatter of milk bottles on a doorstep. Ordinary sounds, yet each one sings of a community finding its rhythm again. Isn't it comforting to think that even in times of great change, the world steadies itself through familiar sounds and gestures? As we drift deeper into these stories tonight, I'll take you into kitchens filled with steam on wash day Mondays, into corner shops where ration books still shape the meals on the table, and into the glow of wireless radios that gather families close in the evening. Together, we'll wander through the forgotten rituals of post-war Britain, not the grand narratives, but the quiet, human details that once filled everyday life. So settle back, let your shoulders relax, and allow these stories to wash over you like a soft, steady tide. You're safe, you're here, and for the next little while, the only thing that matters is this gentle journey into the past. The morning begins quietly, the way so many mornings did in post-war Britain. You wake up beneath a heavy blanket in a narrow terrace house, the kind where the windows rattle slightly when the wind brushes past, and the chill of dawn lingers in the corners of the room. The air is cool against your cheeks, your breath faintly visible as you stir. For a moment, you stay still, listening. There is no central heating to wrap the house in warmth. Instead, comfort will have to be coaxed slowly into being, one careful ritual at a time. From downstairs, you hear the first movements of the day. The soft scrape of a shovel against the coal scuttle. The hollow clink as pieces tumble into the grate. A faint cough, then the strike of a match. Soon, the gentle crackle of flame begins, hesitant at first, then steadier, as the fire is coaxed to life. The smell drifts upward, coal smoke, damp wool, and the sharp tang of metal warming in the hearth. This is how countless mornings began in 1948, not with the instant push of a button, but with patience, labor, and a little skill passed down through generations. Step into the kitchen, and you'll see her there, a mother bent toward the fire, her hair tucked back, sleeves rolled. Her hands are darkened by the dust of coal, smudges she'll carry through much of the day. With practiced movements, she leans forward, nudging the embers, feeding the flames until they glow with steady heat. She sighs softly as the room begins to stir awake, the cold retreating from the edges of the hearth. On the hob, she sets a kettle, its metal belly catching the glow of the fire. Soon, it will whistle, sharp and bright, the first promise of warmth shared in cups of strong tea. Upstairs, children shift beneath their blankets. She calls gently to them, her voice carrying warmth even before the room has. They shuffle out of bed, rubbing their eyes, toes curling against the chill floorboards. The smell of smoke and toast to come draws them downward, each step creaking on the narrow staircase. By the time they reach the kitchen, the kettle is beginning its song. The mother wipes her hands absently on her apron, a faint grey stain left behind. She pours the boiling water, the steam rising like morning mist, filling the room with its hiss and sigh. For many families, coal was both necessity and burden. It blackened the hands and lungs, coated windowsills, and settled into the folds of curtains. Yet it was also life itself, the energy that warmed the body, boiled the kettle, cooked the meals. Britain in the late 1940s could not have functioned without it. Even when shortages meant shivering mornings or smaller fires, people learned to stretch what they had, to coax flame from damp lumps, to make do until the next ration was delivered. Imagine for a moment the rhythm of this ritual. The scrape, the clink, the strike. The fire growing stronger, light flickering across the walls. Children leaning close, warming their hands, watching the small flames with sleepy eyes. A father might come in from outside, brushing soot from his coat, the crisp air clinging to him like a second skin. He would pause, letting the warmth meet him, his face softening as he held his palms near the fire. And always, there was the smell, sharp coal smoke mingled with the damp scent of morning, a fragrance both comforting and heavy. It clung to hair and clothes, to every surface, until it became part of the identity of the home itself. Do you have a smell that brings you instantly back to a memory? For many, this was the smell of childhood, of mornings, of family, of ordinary resilience. In winter, the ritual carried extra weight. Frost rimmed the inside of windows, patterns delicate as lace. You might wake to find your breath fogging in the bedroom, the floor icy underfoot. The fire downstairs became a beacon, a magnet drawing everyone together. Even the cat, curled in the best spot on the rug, understood the importance of the hearth. In summer, Though gentler, the routine continued, less for survival, more for the steadying comfort of tradition. Now, pause for just a moment. Close your eyes if you like. Imagine for a moment, what's the first sound you'd hear if you woke up in 1948 Britain? Would it be the scrape of coal against iron, the whistle of the kettle, or perhaps the quiet hum of neighbors already stirring in the street outside? Whatever it is, that sound belongs to a world where life was measured not by speed and convenience, but by these repeated acts of care. A fire coaxed into being. A kettle placed on the hob. A mother's hands, blackened by coal dust, still gentle as they pass a slice of toast to a sleepy child. And with that warmth settling into the room, the day truly begins. The morning air is cool and damp as you step out into the street. Your breath clouds softly before you, and the pavement beneath your shoes glistens faintly, carrying the memory of last night's drizzle. Chimney smoke lingers in the air, mingling with the sharper tang of paraffin oil from a shop lamp that flickers uncertainly against the grey light. Around you, the houses are close together, their doors painted in muted shades, curtains drawn back as the neighborhood stirs to life. You walk slowly, joining the quiet procession of neighbors moving toward the corner shop. There is no hurry. The queue will form, as it does every day, and waiting has become part of the ritual. A line of people already stretches along the pavement, collars turned up against the chill, scarves tucked neatly beneath coats. The murmur of soft voices floats in the stillness, broken occasionally by the hollow echo of footsteps as another joins the back. Each person clutches a ration book, its paper worn thin, corners curling from months of careful use. Inside, pages are filled with neat stamps and marks, recording every ounce of sugar, every ounce of butter, each purchase carefully measured and never taken for granted. You glance at yours, the familiar weight of it grounding you. It is more than just paper. It is the rhythm of life in post-war Britain, dictating meals, shaping family tables, and weaving patience into every meal prepared. Near the front of the line, two women stand close together, their voices hushed but warm. One leans in slightly, as if sharing a secret. "If you add a spoonful of powdered milk," she says, "it stretches the mash a bit more. No one notices." The other nods, smiling faintly, her ration book tucked tightly under her arm. They begin swapping small strategies, recipes born of necessity and creativity. Dried eggs stirred with a touch of flour, carrot cake sweetened with grated root vegetables, the careful saving of sugar for birthdays or Christmas. These whispered exchanges are not just about food, they are threads of community, woven between neighbors who understand the same quiet struggles. The shop door opens, a faint creak of wood on metal hinges, and the line shuffles forward by a step. You notice the paper parcels carried by those emerging, butter wrapped in thin waxy sheets, bread still faintly warm beneath brown paper, a rare piece of fruit nestled carefully as though it were treasure. The smell of it drifts out, yeast and flour, comforting and familiar, blending with the sharper scent of paraffin from the lamps that keep the small shop lit. Inside, the shop is dim and narrow, shelves lined with tins, packets, and jars, though many gaps show where supplies have run thin. The grocer moves steadily, his hands practiced, scissors snipping paper, string tied quickly, parcels placed into waiting hands. There is little fuss, little extravagance, just the steady rhythm of service. Behind him, chalk marks list prices that shift as supplies allow, reminders of a world still bound by shortage. You watch a young boy clutch a small coin in his mittened hand, standing tall as he asks shyly for a bar of soap. His mother stands behind him, smiling softly as the grocer slides it across the counter. Such small purchases carry a quiet weight, the boy holding the package as though it was something rare. And in truth, even the ordinary items feel precious. Back in the queue, the women continue their gentle talk. One recalls how her mother once made a pudding from breadcrumbs, sugar, and a splash of jam, enough to fill the stomach and lift spirits. The other laughs softly, remembering her children's puzzled faces when she first offered them mock cream made with margarine and sugar. They share these stories with a kind of pride, not boastful, but steady, rooted in the knowledge that survival itself is an art. Step outside again, and the queue still trails patiently along the pavement. The damp air carries a mixture of smells, bread, paraffin, and the faintest trace of coal smoke lingering from home fires. Feet shuffle against stone, and every so often, laughter breaks the monotony, a small ripple of warmth in the cool morning. These lines, though long and slow, are not simply about goods. They are spaces where neighbors see one another, where conversation sparks, where children play with chalk along the edge of the curb while mothers talk. It is easy to think of rationing as mere deprivation, but here, in the ordinary moments, it becomes something else. It is creativity in the kitchen, friendship in whispered advice, resilience passed from one family to another. The hardship is real, yes, but so too is the quiet strength that grows in its shadow. And as you finally step into the shop yourself, the bell above the door ringing softly, you feel the weight of the moment. The smell of paper-wrapped goods, the warmth of bread fresh from the oven, the comfort of knowing that even in scarcity, people have found ways to feed not just the body, but the spirit. So let me ask you, if you found yourself stepping into this little shop in 1948, what would you hope to find wrapped up and handed to you? Would it be something simple, like bread and butter? Or perhaps, just perhaps, a rare apple shining in the light, a reminder of sweetness even in lean years? Evening settles slowly over the street, the light fading from the sky until the rooftops are outlined in soft greys and shadows. Curtains are drawn against the dusk, shutting out the chill that seeps in with the night air. Inside, the fire glows gently in the hearth, slippers are slipped onto tired feet, and the small rituals of comfort begin. You can almost feel it, that moment when the day's work loosens its grip, when the bustle of errands, queues, and chores gives way to something quieter, something shared. In the center of the room, pride of place belongs to the wireless set. Its wooden casing gleams faintly in the firelight, knobs polished by countless turns, its cloth speaker cover holding the promise of voices and music that seem to reach across the nation. The wireless was not just a machine, it was a hearth of its own, one that warmed the imagination and drew families together. The children are first to claim their spots, sprawling on the rug, heads resting on their arms, eyes heavy but wide enough to drink in every sound. A mother sits nearby, knitting needles clicking softly, the steady rhythm matching the crackle that hums from the set. A father leans close, adjusting the aerial with careful patience. He tilts it one way, then another, listening to the static shift, until finally the sound clears, a familiar voice filling the room. There is a hush, almost reverent, as the program begins. Perhaps it is the early days of the Archers, a story of village life meant to bring comfort and stability to a recovering nation. Or perhaps it is a light comedy, the kind that makes the children giggle and the parents smile in weary gratitude. Each program, whether drama, music, or news, carried more than entertainment. It was connection. It was the feeling that you were part of something larger, that voices carried into your home were also reaching millions of others, weaving the country together in shared listening. The sound is warm, slightly fuzzy at the edges, but that only adds to its charm. A dance tune drifts in, and one of the children begins to hum along, tapping fingers against the rug. The father chuckles quietly, stretching his legs, while the mother pauses in her knitting to watch them with fond amusement. The crackle between programs feels like a heartbeat, familiar, steady, almost soothing in its imperfection. For many families, the wireless was the highlight of the day, a time when everyone gathered in the same room, no matter how small the space. Some listened with hands busy at work, darning socks, shelling peas, writing letters at the kitchen table. Others simply let themselves drift, eyes closed, letting the voices carry them away. Have you ever had a sound like that? One that meant safety at the end of a long day? The kettle's whistle, the shuffle of a loved one's footsteps, the murmur of voices from another room? Beyond the living room, the wireless had a purpose that stretched even further. During the war, it had been a lifeline of news, encouragement, and unity. In the post-war years, it remained a companion, helping morale, shaping culture, even guiding taste in music and stories. New shows appeared, like The Archers in 1951, offering simple tales of country life that reassured listeners with their steady rhythm. A world weary from upheaval needed these gentle narratives, much as you might need a soft story tonight to ease you toward rest. Imagine now the quiet satisfaction of such an evening. The fire flickers. Shadows move gently on the walls. The children's eyes begin to close, their breathing slower, their bodies heavy with sleep. The mother sets her knitting aside, stretching her hands, and leans back with a sigh. The father, still by the wireless, looks around the room and smiles faintly, as though the crackle and hum had drawn not just sound, but peace into their home. Occasionally, there might be interruptions, the set losing signal, the aerial slipping, a sudden burst of static. But even that carried its own rhythm. A quick adjustment, a shared laugh, the gentle return of the voice. The imperfections were part of the charm, just as the rituals themselves. Slippers, tea, knitting, the wireless, were part of the gentle order that steadied life. Think about your own family rituals, the sounds that meant safety at the end of a long day. Was it the soft rhythm of a parent humming, the pages of a book turning, or perhaps the radio humming in the background as you drifted to sleep? Those sounds stay with us, don't they, long after the moment has passed? As the evening grows later, the fire sinks lower, glowing embers casting a warm red light. The wireless hums one last song, one last story, before finally clicking off. The room settles into quiet, the only sound the tick of the clock on the mantel. The day, with all its labor and waiting, has come to a close, gently, softly, with voices that carried comfort through the night. Monday arrives with its own rhythm, a rhythm that households across post-war Britain know well. It is wash day, the day when the entire house seems to echo with the hiss of boiling water, the slap of wet cloth, the creak of wooden pegs. Long before machines would take the weight of the chore, laundry was a ritual of labor, patience, and perseverance, repeated week after week, no matter the weather. You step into the kitchen and the air is already thick with steam. A large copper boiler bubbles in the corner, the water rolling and spitting, sending clouds across the small panes of glass until they blur with condensation. The window drips steadily, rivulets trailing down like slow-moving rain. The smell is sharp, a mix of soap flakes and damp cloth, heavy but clean. Every surface glistens with moisture, and the heat clings to your skin. At the table stands a young wife, sleeves rolled high, hair pinned back hastily. She hums softly to herself, a tune without words, just enough to keep her company as her hands plunge into the steaming water. The fabric is rough beneath her fingers, the rhythm steady as she scrubs against the washboard. Each stroke sends tiny splashes across her apron, leaving darkened patches that spread slowly. Her face is damp, both from the steam and the effort, but her expression is calm, even meditative. This is the work she inherited from her mother, and her mother before her. Beyond the back door, strung between fences, lines of washing already flap faintly in the breeze. The weather is unreliable. In summer, the sheets dry quickly, crisp and white in the sun. In winter, they may stiffen with frost, crackling like boards when brought back inside. Neighbors lean across the fence, baskets on their hips, sharing gossip as they hang out their clothes. A baby's cry drifts from one yard, a dog barks in another, but through it all, the voices of women rise and fall in steady conversation, laughter occasionally punctuating the air. Laundry was never just about cleanliness. It was a marker of order, of dignity, of keeping a family's face bright even when resources were scarce. A shirt scrubbed clean and hung neatly on the line was a sign of pride. Soap flakes were precious, water heating was laborious, but the sight of fresh washing was a comfort in itself. Can you imagine the satisfaction of seeing a row of sheets, billowing white in the breeze, after hours of work? Inside, the young wife wrings out a shirt, twisting until her knuckles pale, droplets pattering back into the basin. Her hands are reddened from the heat, nails soft from soaking. She shakes out the fabric, smooths it once across her arm, then adds it to the basket waiting by her feet. Her humming continues, a little louder now, keeping time with the rhythm of her labor. Children peek in occasionally, drawn by the warmth and the steamy fog that makes the kitchen feel like another world. They giggle at the way the windows have disappeared, at the way their mother's hair curls damply against her forehead. But they also know to keep their distance. The copper is hot, the water unforgiving, the work not to be interrupted. As the day stretches on, the piles shrink, the lines fill, and the house takes on the smell of soap and damp cotton. Outside, the yards are alive with fluttering garments, neighbors calling back and forth, children weaving between the lines like explorers in a maze of fabric. In those moments, wash day is not just labor but community, a shared ritual that binds households together in its very monotony. There is a kind of beauty in it, too. The way the sun, when it shines, turns the sheets into luminous sails. The way the breeze carries the scent of clean cloth through the neighborhood. The way each peg clipped onto the line feels like a small victory, a visible step toward order. By evening, the work is not yet done. Damp clothes must be gathered, folded, perhaps placed near the fire to finish drying. Irons, heavy and hot, may be set on the stove, ready to smooth out creases. But the hardest part, the scalding water, the endless scrubbing, the wringing and pegging, is complete. The young wife wipes her brow with the back of her hand, sighs softly, and looks at the yard filled with fluttering clothes. For a moment, she simply stands and admires the sight. And as you watch with her, you might find yourself wondering, what is it about these small, repetitive labors that steadies the heart? Perhaps it is the rhythm, the sense of progress, the way each humble act builds into something larger. Or perhaps it is simply that in a world still healing, even soap and water, even steam and effort, could bring a little order, a little beauty, into the day. As the afternoon stretches toward evening, a familiar pause settles across the house. No matter how busy the day has been, whether spent queuing at the shop, tending the fire, or scrubbing laundry until hands ache, there comes a moment when everything slows for tea. Tea time is the anchor, the heartbeat of the day, steady and reassuring, as essential as the fire itself. The kettle hums gently on the hob, steam rising in curls, and soon the sharp whistle calls everyone to gather. Thick mugs are set out on the worn wooden table, sturdy enough to be clutched in both hands. The tea is strong, stewed dark in the pot, poured out in generous servings. A splash of milk swirls through, softening the color but never quite taming the strength. Alongside it comes toast, slices browned over the open fire, edges charred in places, butter melting unevenly into the surface. The smell is irresistible, rich, warm, faintly smoky. It isn't a feast by any measure, not in a world still shaped by rationing. But tea and toast have never been about extravagance. They are about ritual, about comfort, about knowing that whatever the day has demanded of you, this moment belongs to rest. Tea was the glue of Britain in austerity, a steady companion that required little but gave much. The knock on the back door is soft, almost expected. An elderly neighbor steps inside, tugging her shawl a little tighter, her cheeks flushed from the cool air. "Just thought I'd pop by for a cuppa," she says, "though both of you know it will be more than that." A place is cleared at the table, another mug fetched, and soon she is settled in, warming her hands around the steaming tea. The conversation flows easily, weaving between gossip and memory. She tells of the butcher's new apprentice, of the price of bread, of the daughter who has just written from London with tales of buses and busy streets. Laughter bubbles up at small anecdotes, sighs are shared over small troubles. Hours slip by unnoticed, as they so often do when companionship is simple and genuine. The toast plate empties, replaced once, then twice, crumbs scattered like tiny reminders of contentment. Children drift in and out, drawn by the smell, snatching slices of toast before darting away again. One lingers, listening quietly as the women talk, half understanding the words but sensing the comfort in their tone. The sound of voices, warm, steady, unhurried, fills the room as surely as the fire does. Outside, the light fades into twilight, but inside, the glow of the fire and the steam of the tea make the room feel timeless. It is a pocket of peace carved out of the day, ordinary yet precious. And isn't that often the way? That the moments which stay with us longest are not the grand events, but the quiet rituals, a mug of tea, a piece of toast, the company of someone who makes the hours slip gently past. Perhaps you have your own version of this ritual. Maybe tonight you have your own warm drink beside you. Take a sip and share the same tradition that once brought comfort to countless households. The taste, the warmth, the pause, it's the same across time, linking you to those who sat around their tables decades ago, mugs in hand, voices low, hearts a little lighter. When the neighbor finally rises to leave, the kettle is set back on the hob, ready to be called upon again. The shawl is pulled close, farewells are exchanged, and promises to do it again soon float into the night air. The door closes softly, and for a moment the house is still. The mugs remain on the table, rings of tea marking the wood, crumbs scattered in the firelight. These are the quiet remnants of a ritual that will repeat tomorrow, and the day after, and perhaps for the rest of a lifetime. And as you sit in that fading glow, you feel it, the simple truth that even in times of scarcity, the soul could be nourished by nothing more than tea, toast, and a little shared gossip. The late afternoon light softens, spilling gently across narrow cobbled streets. Rows of brick houses, all alike yet, each with its own tiny garden or back gate, glow with a reddish warmth as children tumble outside. The air is cool but lively, alive with the sound of skipping ropes slapping against stone, marbles clicking together, chalk scratching patterns into the pavement. Laughter carries down the rows, weaving its way into every open window and doorway, a chorus of play that seems to belong to the street itself. There are no piles of toys here, no brightly packaged distractions. Post-war Britain was marked by thrift and improvisation, especially for the swelling number of children born in the baby boom years. Games were simple, shared, and endlessly inventive. A length of rope became a skipping challenge, turned faster and faster while a child leapt in time, hair flying, cheeks flushed with the thrill. A bit of chalk transformed the stones into hopscotch courts, numbered boxes leading from earth to heaven, the pebble tossed just so before each careful hop. And a handful of marbles, glass spheres catching the last glint of daylight, could hold the attention of a small crowd, as each shot sent the tiny world rolling across the street. One boy sits apart for a moment, clutching a teddy bear close. It is not new, its fur is worn thin in places, one ear stitched back carefully with a mismatched patch, stuffing peeking faintly from a seam along its side. His mother has mended it more than once, her needle passing through the fabric as if she was stitching love directly into its seams. To him, this toy is no less precious for its scars. In fact, perhaps it is even more so, a hand-me-down that carries the comfort of history, of survival, of being cared for despite everything. He places the teddy on a doorstep, carefully propped to watch the game of marbles, as if it too were part of the evening crowd. The street itself seems like a stage for these small dramas. Girls chant rhymes as they jump rope in pairs, voices rising in sing-song cadences that linger in the air long after the game ends. Boys scuff the cobbles with their shoes, chalk lines marking goalposts for an impromptu football match. Now and then a parent leans from a doorway, calling for caution as a lorry rumbles past, its heavy tires shaking the stones. Yet within moments, the game resumes, the interruption forgotten in the urgency of play. There is joy in the roughness of it all, knees scraped on stone, fingers chalk-dusted, trousers worn thin at the knees. These were not inconveniences but badges of a childhood spent outside, of days filled with fresh air and freedom. With so few toys, every object carried weight. A ball that rolled beneath a car could halt the entire game. A marble pocketed by mistake might spark a fierce, brief quarrel, resolved moments later in a burst of laughter. Do you remember your own childhood sounds? The echo of games, the rhythm of laughter, the clatter of shoes on pavement? Even now, they can stir something warm inside, a reminder of the timeless energy of children at play. As dusk deepens, the voices grow softer but no less spirited. The skipping slows, marbles are gathered into pockets, chalk hopscotch courts remain faintly glowing in the dim light, ready for tomorrow. The boy retrieves his patched teddy, holding it close as he lingers at the edge of the group, reluctant to give up the last of the evening. His mother's voice finally calls him inside, and he goes willingly, knowing tomorrow will bring the same games, the same friends, the same laughter rolling like waves through the street. For now, the cobbles grow quiet, but the memory of the games remains, woven into the walls of the houses and the hearts of the children who filled them with sound. And as you picture the scene, you might smile softly, realizing that while times and places change, the need for play, for laughter, for imagination, for community, is something we all carry, no matter the decade. Saturday arrives with a special kind of energy, one that hums through the streets even before the stalls are set. The cobblestones are damp with early morning mist, and from every corner of the town, footsteps converge toward the square. You follow along, drawn by the promise of bustle, the scent of bread, the murmur of voices carrying in the cool air. For many households, the weekly market is more than an errand. It is the very pulse of community, a ritual as old as the streets themselves. The square fills with a patchwork of stalls, canvas flapping gently in the breeze, tables laden with whatever the season has to offer. The mingled aromas tell their own story, the sharp saltiness of fish packed on ice, the yeasty warmth of fresh loaves stacked high, the faint tang of coal smoke drifting from nearby chimneys. Spices, though rare and costly, lend exotic notes when a stall manages to carry them. Fruit, when it appears, gleams like treasure, oranges in winter drawing small crowds eager to glimpse color amid the grey. You walk among the stalls, senses sharpened by the variety. The clatter of scales echoes as traders weigh potatoes by the pound. Coins jingle, ration books are unfolded, and paper parcels are tied with string before being handed across worn wooden counters. The ground is slick in places, puddles reflecting the sky, shoes scuffing as people shuffle forward. And always, the air is alive with voices, greetings called out, gossip traded, children tugging at sleeves, bargaining whispered low. Near the edge of the square, a stall draws your attention for its simplicity. No bright displays, no cheerful banter to lure buyers, just a man standing quietly behind a small spread of produce. Carrots, cabbages, onions, modest, sturdy vegetables, set in neat rows. His hands are large and rough, the knuckles scarred, the nails clean but uneven. He picks up a cabbage, weighing it briefly before setting it down again, as though his movements must be deliberate, steady, unshakable. You notice the worn jacket, the stillness in his posture, and you understand. He is one of the many veterans who returned after the war, building a new life piece by piece. A woman approaches his stall, greeting him softly. There is no rush, no push for trade. Instead, a conversation unfolds, half about the weather, half about how his harvest fared. She buys a handful of carrots, thanks him, and lingers a moment longer than necessary, as though her purchase is as much about connection as it is about food. That is the quiet beauty of the market. It is not only a place of exchange but of recognition, of reassurance that neighbors are still here, still enduring, still part of the whole. Children dart through the crowd, their laughter mingling with the hawkers' cries. A boy clutches a paper cone of roasted chestnuts, the steam curling above his hand. A girl peers longingly at jars of sweets, though she knows her ration coupons will not stretch far. Dogs weave between legs, tails wagging, noses lifting at the scents. Somewhere, a musician begins to play, the thin reedy notes of an accordion threading their way between voices and footsteps. For a moment, you stop in the middle of it all and simply listen. The market is noisy, yes, but it is also rhythmic, a chorus of ordinary life. The shuffle of feet, the crackle of paper bags, the rise and fall of greetings, they blend into a song that belongs only to Saturday. It is a song of continuity, of life pressing forward despite shortages and scars. Isn't it striking how these moments, so everyday in their own time, become treasures in memory? How the smell of bread or the sound of coins clinking on a wooden counter can carry an entire world within them. As the morning wears on, baskets fill and the crowd thins. Stalls stand a little emptier, their bounty diminished but their purpose fulfilled. The veteran gathers his remaining vegetables carefully, placing them into a sack with the same quiet precision he used in setting them out. He does not sell everything, but enough to sustain another week, enough to remind him that he belongs here, not as a soldier, but as a man of the soil, a neighbor among neighbors. By midday, the square begins to quiet. Litter, bits of paper, stray cabbage leaves, the husk of a chestnut, scatters in the breeze. The stalls creak as they are folded down, the last bargains struck in low voices. And the people, baskets heavy, drift back through the narrow streets, returning to their homes with food, with stories, with the lingering warmth of connection. As you follow them out of the square, you realize the market is more than commerce. It is a living thread that binds the community, a weekly heartbeat that reassures each person they are part of something larger. It is the sound of resilience, the smell of sustenance, the sight of neighbors finding one another in the midst of change. And it is a reminder that even in times of hardship, life insists on gathering, on sharing, on moving forward together. The evening is quiet, the kind of stillness that seems to gather after supper when the lamps are lit and the fire burns low. You sit at a small wooden table, paper smoothed carefully before you, a fountain pen held loosely in your hand. The nib scratches softly as it moves, leaving dark ink across the page in looping script. Outside, the world settles into night, the faint creak of a gate in the wind, the distant sound of boots on pavement. But here, at this table, all the focus is on the slow rhythm of writing. Letters are the lifeblood of connection in post-war Britain, affordable and dependable in ways that long-distance calls are not. Each envelope carries more than words. It carries presence, a reminder that someone thought of you long enough to sit, to write, to fold paper and send it through the faithful hands of the Royal Mail. Stamps are chosen, envelopes sealed with a lick, a small but intimate gesture, and then dropped into the red pillar boxes that stand like guardians on nearly every corner. For some, writing is an everyday ritual, a note to a sister, a postcard to a cousin, a thank you to a neighbor. But for others, it is weighted with longing, each sentence a thread thrown across distance. At one table, a young woman bends over her page, her brow furrowed in concentration. The lamp casts a warm pool of light, catching the shine of her hair as she leans close. She is waiting for a letter, though she doesn't admit it aloud. Her fiancé is still abroad, part of the lingering duties that keep soldiers scattered even after the war has ended. Every morning she listens for the postman's knock, heart quickening at the sound of letters sliding through the door. Some days bring nothing, and she carries the silence quietly, folding it into her chores, her conversations, her evenings. But when a letter does arrive, the familiar scrawl on the envelope, the foreign stamp in the corner, her hands tremble as she tears it open. Tonight she replies, her own words tumbling onto the page in careful lines. She writes about the small details of her days, the washing flapping on the line, the market stall with the first fresh apples, the neighbor who dropped in for tea. She writes of how the garden is greening with spring, of how the wireless carries songs that make her think of him. Between her sentences, though, lies what she cannot quite put into words, the waiting, the missing, the unspoken hope that he will be home soon. As she signs her name, she pauses, the pen tip resting against the paper. Does she add with love, or something stronger? In the end, she settles for a simple flourish beneath her name, a mark he will recognize, one that says what words cannot. She folds the sheet, tucks it into its envelope, and seals it with a lick. The taste of the glue is sharp on her tongue, the moment both ordinary and intimate. Tomorrow she will walk to the pillar box, drop the letter inside, and wait again. Can you picture the anticipation she feels, waiting for that daily post? The sound of the slot opening, the soft slap of envelopes. Against the floor, those small noises carried a world's worth of hope. Across Britain, homes hum with this same quiet ritual. Soldiers write to their families, mothers to their sons, sweethearts to one another. Children scrawl crooked words to grandparents, proud of every misspelled sentence. Postcards arrive from the seaside, corners bent, bright pictures promising sand and salt air. The postman, carrying his heavy bag, becomes a figure of quiet importance, known by face and by name, welcomed at every door. And when the letters are read, they are never simply discarded. They are tucked into drawers, tied with ribbon, slipped between pages of books. Paper grows soft with handling. Ink smudges where tears or fingertips linger. In those fragile sheets, people stored reassurance, love, and memory. As the young woman blows gently on her envelope to dry the ink, the house grows still around her. She sets it aside, places the pen carefully back into its case, and leans back with a sigh. Another letter written, another day of waiting begun. And yet, there is comfort in knowing her words will travel across oceans and borders, carrying her presence to the one she longs for. Evening has settled in, and the village streets grow hushed beneath the pale glow of gas lamps. The air is cool, carrying with it the faint tang of coal smoke and damp stone. You walk slowly down the cobbled lane, and there, ahead, a pool of amber light spills onto the ground from a doorway left just slightly ajar. The low hum of voices drifts outward, punctuated by the occasional clink of glass. This is the village pub, warm, familiar, and steady, a beacon at the heart of the community. Stepping inside, you're greeted by the mingled aromas of hops, pipe tobacco, and polished wood. The heat hits you first, a comforting wave after the chill outside. Coats hang thickly on hooks by the door, scarves looped and dripping with the damp of evening mist. The light is golden, softened by smoke curling lazily through the rafters, making everything seem gently blurred, as if the pub itself is cocooned in its own timeless haze. The bar stretches modestly along one wall, its surface worn smooth by years of elbows leaning, coins sliding, pints poured. Glasses clink as they're set down, the froth of mild ale catching the glow of the lamps. Behind the bar, the landlord nods at each order, pulling the heavy brass handles with practiced ease. There is no rush, no frantic service, just a rhythm, steady and assured, as familiar as the beat of a heart. In the corner, a small group of men are bent over a dartboard, their laughter bubbling up as one throws wide of the mark. "Nearly," someone calls, raising a pint in mock salute. The chalk on the scoreboard squeaks as another tally is added, and a round of applause follows a rare bullseye. Darts is more than a game here. It is ritual, a way of passing the hours in easy companionship, the stakes no greater than pride and another round of ale. Across the room, a fire crackles in the grate, its flames licking upward, shadows dancing along the walls. A pair of women sit near the hearth, knitting needles clicking steadily as they talk. Their conversation drifts between household gossip and the latest wireless programs, punctuated by the occasional laugh that ripples outward, warming even those who are not close enough to catch the words. A dog lies sprawled at their feet, half asleep, one ear flicking now and then as voices rise. The pub is more than just a place to drink. In these years of rationing and recovery, it is the community's living room, a space where neighbors gather not to escape their lives, but to share them. News travels quickly within these walls, a child's exam results, a new calf born, a son returning home from service. Troubles are shared too, eased a little by sympathetic nods and murmured reassurances. Even silence here is companionable, the kind where presence itself is enough. You find a seat at a wooden table, the surface etched with initials, rings from pint glasses long dried. Your fingers trace the grooves as the landlord sets down a glass of mild ale before you. The first sip is earthy, slightly bitter, but mellow, the kind of taste that seems to anchor you in the moment, grounding you in the here and now. Around you, Voices ebb and flow, weaving a tapestry of sound that is both lively and soothing. Isn't it remarkable how places like this become the heartbeats of a village? Not grand or elaborate, but steady, dependable, offering warmth, laughter, and company when the world outside feels uncertain. As the evening stretches on, the games wind down, the last darts thrown with exaggerated ceremony. Pints are drained, glasses stacked, the dog shifts in his sleep. The landlord polishes the bar with a slow, practiced hand, already thinking of tomorrow, though there is no hurry to usher anyone out. Time here seems to bend, stretching in golden loops of laughter and gentle conversation. When at last the door opens again, the cool night air rushes in, and one by one the patrons step out, their good nights carrying softly down the lane. The cobbles gleam faintly under the lamplight, and the warm glow from the pub lingers behind, as if reluctant to fade. You walk away slowly, the sound of voices still echoing in your ears, the taste of mild ale lingering, the memory of neighborly laughter following you home. And as you think back, you realize that the glow of the pub was never only in its lamps or its fire, but in the people within it, in their company, their stories, their shared resilience. A glow that belonged to everyone, and that burned quietly, faithfully, night after night. The train rattles along the tracks, its carriages filled with the hum of excited voices, the shuffle of suitcases, the smell of sandwiches wrapped in paper. Out the window, fields and hedgerows roll past, blurring into a patchwork of green and gold. Children press their noses against the glass, pointing at every passing village, every glimpse of water, their anticipation bubbling over with each mile. The destination is Brighton, or Blackpool, or perhaps a smaller seaside town. It hardly matters. What matters is the sea, the promise of salt air and freedom after years when travel was scarce, and holidays felt like distant dreams. The post-war years saw a quiet blossoming of working-class holidays. As the country rebuilt, factories offered time off, trains ran crowded but steady, and families seized the chance to escape the smoke and grit of their towns. Seaside resorts became symbols of recovery, places where the ordinary could taste a little of the extraordinary. Sand between the toes, fish and chips on the promenade, laughter carried on the breeze. The train slows, wheels screeching, and then at last the doors open with a clatter. The platform bursts into movement, voices rising as families step into the bright seaside light. The air is different here, sharper, tinged with salt, alive with gull cries circling overhead. Mothers adjust hats against the breeze, fathers hoist bags onto shoulders, children tug impatiently, already searching for their first glimpse of the water. And then, there it is, the sea, stretching out wide and endless, blue-grey under the sun. For some, it is the first sight in years. For children, perhaps the first in their lives. The family stands for a moment, silent despite their excitement, taking it in as though they are looking upon something sacred. The promenade bustles with life. Striped deck chairs line the beach, bright splashes of red, yellow, and blue against the pale sand. Vendors call out, offering sticks of rock, hard, striped sweets that crunch between the teeth and stain the tongue bright pink. The smell of frying batter drifts on the breeze, mingling with the salty tang of seaweed. Everywhere, the air is filled with movement, prams being pushed, bicycles weaving past, donkeys plodding patiently with small children astride, their hooves leaving soft prints in the sand. On the beach, shoes are quickly discarded. Stockings are rolled down, trousers rolled up, skirts lifted clear of the tide. The sand is warm beneath bare feet, gritty yet welcoming, clinging stubbornly between toes. The water is cool, shockingly so, but irresistible. Shrieks of laughter rise as waves lap over ankles. Skirts are splashed, trousers dampened, but no one minds. It is all part of the joy, the proof of being away, of leaving behind the smoke and soot of daily life. Nearby, a father sets up a windbreak, hammering its poles into the sand, while his wife carefully unfolds sandwiches and flasks of tea. The children dart between sea and shore, pockets filling with shells and pebbles, cheeks pink from the salty breeze. Later, they will build castles, moats filling with water that refuses to be contained, towers crumbling only to be rebuilt. The parents watch, smiling, the sound of gulls overhead blending with the steady rush of waves. For a moment, close your eyes. Can you hear the gulls, smell the salt, feel the grit of sand between your toes? It is the same sensation felt by countless families then, the timeless magic of the seaside. Evenings bring new delights. Illuminations flicker along the promenade in Blackpool, glowing in bright colours that seem almost unreal after the austerity of blackout curtains and dim street lamps. Music drifts from dance halls, laughter spills from penny arcades where children rattle coins into machines, hoping for prizes. Couples stroll arm in arm, shawls pulled tight against the chill, pausing to watch the lights reflected in the darkening sea. For the family, the day ends with sticky fingers from melting ice cream, pockets heavy with stones collected as treasures, skin kissed by wind and sun. They walk slowly back toward the station or the small boarding house where they will spend the night, tired but glowing with the memory of the sea. The children fall asleep quickly, lulled by the lingering sound of waves still echoing in their ears. Holidays at the seaside are more than leisure. In those post-war years, they are symbols of resilience, proof that joy can return even after hardship. They are a reminder that life is not only about survival, but about moments of delight, of laughter, of standing at the edge of the sea and feeling the world open wide before you. And as you picture yourself there, sitting in a striped deck chair, sand warm beneath your feet, salt wind on your face, you might find that the timeless pull of the sea reaches you even now, soothing, steady, and endless. The evenings come early in post-war Britain. The sky darkening before supper is even cleared away. You can almost feel the cold pressing at the windows, condensation gathering in heavy droplets that run in slow trails down the glass. Curtains are drawn tight, their faded fabric holding back the chill, and the whole household folds itself inward, into the quiet cocoon of a winter night. The fire burns with a soft crackle, its warmth carrying only so far, so jumpers and cardigans are layered thick, the smell of wool mingling with the faint tang of coal smoke that clings to everything. On the mantelpiece, a paraffin lamp glows with its golden halo, flickering slightly when the draught catches it. Electricity exists, of course, but it is precious, sometimes rationed, and never wasted. Gaslight and oil still feel safer, more reliable, familiar companions in a house where every switch is used with care. The light is gentle, never harsh, softening edges, throwing shadows that dance on the walls. It is not a brightness that banishes the dark, but one that makes the dark feel friendly, enclosing, protective. Near the hearth, a pair of knitted jumpers hangs on the clothes horse, steaming slightly as they dry. Their wool gives off a damp, earthy scent that fills the room, a reminder of the outside cold now being slowly chased away. Beside them, socks curl and stiffen, waiting for tomorrow's wear. A mother's hands are busy with her needles, the quiet, rhythmic click providing its own music. Each stitch is both ordinary and extraordinary, wool unraveled into warmth, row by row, hour by hour, a ritual that links her to countless mothers before her. In the corner, a boy sits hunched over a book, the the paraffin lamp angled just so, its circle of light his entire world. His breath clouds faintly in the cold air, but he hardly notices. The story carries him elsewhere, across oceans, into imagined cities, through worlds far larger than the one framed by his street and schoolyard. Every turn of the page is a doorway, and though his fingers are ink-smudged and slightly chilled, he feels the glow of possibility. He does not yet know what he will be, perhaps a sailor, perhaps a teacher, perhaps something else entirely. But in the hush of this gaslit room, dreaming is as much a part of survival as the coal fire itself. In another chair, an elderly grandmother dozes, her lap blanket pulled up to her chin, the gentle rhythm of the knitting needles lulling her. From time to time, she stirs, lifting her head to listen. Outside, the muffled sound of footsteps passes along the pavement, or a bicycle bell rings faintly in the distance. The world beyond the curtains feels far away, softened by mist and night, leaving only the small, glowing island of home. And perhaps you pause to wonder, what sounds and scents make your evenings feel safe? The kettle whistling, the low hum of a heater, the glow of a bedside lamp. In 1949, it was this dim, golden halo, the fire's whisper, the scent of drying wool, all combining into a rhythm that felt both modest and deeply reassuring. Children curl on the rug, their heads pillowed against each other, drowsy in the warmth. A father clears his throat as he reads the paper aloud in fragments, the rustle of newsprint sharp against the hush. Now and then, sparks crack in the grate, shooting up like tiny fireworks, drawing brief attention before the room folds back into its slow, steady quiet. These winter evenings, for all their shadows and shortages, carried their own kind of light. They were nights of togetherness, of steady hands and dreaming hearts, of comfort woven from simple things. And as you picture that boy under the lamp, lost in the pages of his book, perhaps you too feel the glow of possibility, dim yet steady, guiding through the dark. The night air carries a faint hum as you approach the town hall, a building that, for one evening a week, becomes the center of laughter, music, and possibility. From the street outside, the sounds of a piano and a brass band spill through the open doors, mingling with the chatter of young people arriving in neat suits and bright dresses. The hall glows warmly, lanterns casting soft light across polished wooden floors, reflecting the careful shimmer of sequins and the shine of polished shoes. Inside, the energy is immediate. Swing music lifts into the rafters, filling every corner with rhythm that demands movement. You can see it in the tapping of feet, the bounce in young shoulders, the twirl of skirts as couples glide across the floor. There is an air of nervous excitement, an unspoken promise that tonight may hold something more than just dance. The post-war years have left an appetite for joy, and the dance hall is a space where restraint gives way to laughter, where hearts can beat faster without shame. A young man, his jacket a little too tight, fingers his tie nervously as he surveys the floor. Across the room, a woman in a dress of soft blue silk adjusts her hair, brushing a curl from her forehead, her cheeks warmed by anticipation. Neither knows the other yet, but when their eyes meet briefly across the room, there is a spark, shy, fleeting, but unmistakable. She smiles, and he returns it, both aware of the invisible thread drawing them forward. The music swells, and the bandleader calls out the next tune. Couples pair off, some confidently, others with hesitation, and the two strangers find themselves side by side. The first steps are awkward, hesitant, but then the rhythm takes over. The boy leads with careful attention, the girl following, matching her movements to his. Nervous smiles give way to genuine laughter, and by the end of the first number, they are moving with ease, the awkwardness forgotten in the joy of shared motion. Dance halls in post-war Britain were more than entertainment. They were social hubs, places where communities met and mingled, where young people could forge connections otherwise hindered by lingering austerity. American swing and jazz had begun to influence the music, bringing energetic rhythms and new styles that filled halls from small towns to cities. For many, the weekly dance was the highlight, a chance to leave behind coal smoke, ration books, and the routines of work for a few hours of bright lights and lively movement. Around the room, the scene is varied and vibrant. Friends gather at tables along the walls, sipping soda or sharing sandwiches hastily brought from home. Parents occasionally peek from the sidelines, smiles twitching as they observe courtships forming. Shoes scuff gently on the floor, laughter punctuates the music, and the occasional clap or cheer rises when a particularly daring move is executed. The hall itself seems to breathe with life, its wooden beams resonating with every note, every step, every whispered word. Back on the floor, the young couple sways through the evening. Between dances, they find themselves lingering near the refreshment table, sharing shy words over paper cups of tea or lemonade. Conversation is awkward at first, careful, but each laugh, each glance, builds trust, curiosity, and warmth. It is a gentle unfolding, like a story told in small chapters. One song, one step, one smile at a time. Do you remember the feeling of a first dance, the thrill of connecting with someone new, the electricity in the air that seemed larger than the room itself? Even decades later, the memory of those moments carries its own light, a reminder of hope, of youth, of beginnings. As the night progresses, the band plays slower tunes, the room softening, couples drawing closer, whispers becoming more intimate. The boy and girl find themselves caught in a quiet corner, the music fading into a gentle hum, their hands brushing and then entwining. In the dim glow of lanterns, surrounded by friends, neighbors, and strangers alike, a first connection is solidified, a potential lifetime begun on a polished wooden floor. By the end of the evening, shoes are scuffed, feet tired, cheeks flushed, and hearts light. Couples depart arm in arm, promising to meet again next week, while others linger to watch the last dances, savoring the warmth and music before stepping back into the cool night air. Outside, the street is calm, but inside each person carries a small spark from the hall, a sense of joy, possibility, and connection that extends far beyond the walls. Dance halls were not simply places to pass the time. They were theaters of human emotion, stages for shy glances, laughter, and the slow weaving of community. And in the soft light of that evening, under the glow of lanterns and the pulse of music, the beginnings of stories, of friendship, of love, of shared life, quietly took root. Sunday morning arrives with a soft hush, the kind that seems to settle over rooftops and cobbled lanes alike. The streets are quiet, except for the occasional clatter of boots on stone and the distant lowing of a cow in a yard somewhere beyond the terrace houses. Inside homes, the ritual begins, collars pressed, skirts smoothed, shoes polished until they catch the light just so. Even in modest households, Sunday best carries a weight of care, a gentle insistence that this day is different, marked by routine, reflection, and shared presence. You step outside, the air crisp and cool, carrying faint wisps of smoke from neighborly chimneys. Children clutch hands with parents, their faces bright with anticipation and a hint of nervousness. Fidgeting fingers tug at stiff collars or press against woolen jumpers, but the warmth of a mother's hand or a father's guiding arm steadies them. The streets themselves seem to stretch a little differently on Sunday, quieter, more intentional, as if the stones themselves understand the rhythm of this morning. Up ahead, the church towers over the square, its stone walls glowing faintly in the weak sunlight. The bells begin to toll, their deep, resonant tones echoing across rooftops and yards. Each strike carries a sense of ceremony, a signal that the village is gathering, that ordinary life pauses to make space for ritual. The sound blends with birdsong, the rustle of skirts and coats, the occasional laugh or whisper, forming a symphony that is both grounding and comforting. Inside the church, wooden pews gleam under the soft light streaming through colored glass. A child fidgets, shifting in the seat, knees bouncing nervously, hands clutching the edge of the pew. His mother leans close, whispering a quiet reassurance, smoothing his hair with one hand while the other folds neatly in her lap. The organ begins to swell, filling the nave with rich harmonics, notes curling and rising in the quiet air. It is solemn and familiar, yet gentle, a musical thread tying generations together. Families around you murmur softly, exchanging greetings, sharing small smiles. Some grandparents nod knowingly to neighbors they have watched grow alongside them. The ritual is as much about connection as it is about devotion, a chance to pause, to be together, to align hearts to a shared cadence. Hymns are sung in warm, unpolished voices, each note carrying both joy and reverence, weaving into the day's tapestry. Even as church attendance slowly declines in the post-war decades, these routines persist. The significance lies less in doctrine than in rhythm, in the shared experience of stepping away from ordinary work and stepping into collective presence. In a world still recovering from conflict, there is comfort in certainty. The bells call, the pew's familiar smell of polished wood, the sunlight filtering through stained glass. Outside, after the service, conversations linger on the church steps. Children exchange glances, swapping small jokes or shy remarks. Parents and neighbors chat, hands resting on shoulders, hats tipped in polite acknowledgement. The ritual concludes with quiet smiles and a gradual dispersal, the bells echoing one last time before the streets resume their usual pace. And perhaps, as you listen to this scene, you imagine yourself there, the crisp air, the rhythm of the bells, the softness of a hand steadying a fidgeting child. Even if the world has changed, the feeling remains universal, a shared sense of community, of pause, of belonging. Sunday best and church bells are more than attire and sound. They are markers of continuity, small yet potent reminders that life's ordinary days are enriched when framed with care, ritual, and the presence of those we love. Night has fully settled now, drawing a gentle veil over rooftops and chimneys. The streets are silent, save for the occasional murmur of a distant dog or the soft scuff of a shoe on cobblestones. Inside homes, the day winds to its natural conclusion. Fires are coaxed into gentle embers, the last warmth held close to hands outstretched, while shadows flicker across walls, slow and deliberate. This is a time for private rituals, quiet acts that carry both practicality and poetry, a mending of socks, a journaling of thoughts, a whispered tune to mark the end of the day. In one modest room, a widow sits by her window, the soft lamp light pooling around her. She hums an old wartime melody, a tune that once comforted her through blackouts and uncertainty. Her hands move methodically, drawing the curtains closed against the night chill, the fabric whispering as it brushes along the windowsill. Outside, the world is dark, but inside, she shapes order and calm, wrapping the day gently around herself like a shawl. Across the hall, a young man sits at a small desk, pen scratching against paper. His journal captures the day's details, errands run, friends visited, small kindnesses exchanged, but also the quiet, fleeting thoughts that might otherwise be lost. He pauses, letting the pen hover, considering the ordinary moments that carry extraordinary weight. The warmth of tea shared, the laughter of children, the neighbor who offered a loaf of bread without a word. Each sentence is deliberate, a testament to resilience, an acknowledgement that life continues, quietly, in its own rhythm. A mother tends the dying fire in the hearth, her movements slow and careful. She stirs the embers with a poker, coaxing warmth that will carry through the evening. Nearby, socks and mittens that have dried on the rail are gathered and folded neatly, a small act of care that will carry forward into tomorrow. These are not grand gestures, not the sort that make history books, but they are acts of dignity, of steady presence, of love and responsibility, the quiet scaffolding on which ordinary lives are built. The room smells faintly of coal and wood smoke, softened by the lingering aroma of dinner recently cleared. A kettle sits unused but clean, its metal warm from the residual heat of earlier use. Outside, a soft wind stirs, whispering through chimneys and over rooftops, but inside, the rhythm of quiet hands and deliberate acts keeps the night contained, secure, and steady. Do you notice how these small rituals, journaling, mending, humming a song, carry their own gentle weight? They mark the passage of time, give shape to the day, and offer a kind of solace that only repetition and attention can provide. In a post-war world of scarcity and upheaval, these private acts were anchors, quietly asserting life's continuity and resilience. The widow hums her tune one last time, closing the curtains fully now. The journal is laid aside, the fire reduced to glowing coals. The household breathes as one, steeped in the soft comfort of familiar routines. And as you picture this scene, perhaps you too feel the lingering warmth, the quiet dignity, the sense of calm that comes from honoring the ordinary moments that so often go unnoticed. Even in silence, life pulses gently, quietly, beautifully. The fire has long since faded to soft embers, their warm glow a memory in the hearth. Outside, the night stretches quiet and steady, blanketing rooftops, streets, and gardens in gentle darkness. Somewhere far away, a dog barks once, echoing softly across the still air. The world has slowed, as it always does at the close of day, and you, too, are invited to slow alongside it. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your body settling into the space you occupy, the gentle hum of your surroundings blending with the echo of the day we've shared together. Think of the streets of post-war Britain we wandered, the small rituals and quiet moments that carried families through ordinary life. The coal fires coaxed to life, the sound of wireless crackling in. The evening, the laughter of children on cobbled streets, the shared warmth of tea and conversation, and the excitement of first glances on dance hall floors. In your mind, you might return to the seaside, the wind tangling in hair, gulls circling overhead, sand gritty beneath toes. Or perhaps you picture the market, the careful stacking of vegetables, the low hum of community, the comforting rhythm of shared labor and small kindnesses. Every scene, every detail, has been a thread, weaving together a tapestry of life both ordinary and extraordinary, quiet yet rich with meaning. As the night deepens, let your attention drift to the smaller, private moments. The widow humming an old tune as she closes her curtains, the boy bent over his journal under a dim lamp, the mother tending the last embers of the fire. These are the acts that hold life together, simple, patient, and filled with dignity. They remind us that even in silence, even in stillness, there is warmth, connection, and resilience. And now, slowly, bring yourself back to the here and now. Feel the comfort of your own space, the steady rhythm of your breath, the quiet that surrounds you. Imagine the glow of a fire fading to embers, the hush of streets long emptied of daily clatter, the soft pull of night encouraging rest. Before you drift, remember that these stories, though set decades ago, are a shared experience. They connect us across time, across distance, across generations. Somewhere, someone else has listened, felt the same warmth, smiled at the same images, and carried a little bit of nostalgia with them into their own evening. We are part of a quiet, global community, linked by curiosity, reflection, and the gentle rhythm of storytelling. So tonight, allow yourself permission to rest. Let the echo of children's laughter, the clink of glasses, the crackle of coal fires, and the toll of distant bells linger softly in your mind. Let the knowledge of ordinary lives, quietly lived with care, guide you into a sense of peace. Your day, too, has value. Your presence, too, is meaningful. And when you wake tomorrow, may you carry a small piece of this calm with you. A reminder that beauty often lives in simplicity, that connection can be found in small gestures, and that the ordinary can hold extraordinary comfort. Thank you for spending this time together. Thank you for allowing these quiet moments of history, of imagination, and of reflection to enter your evening. Rest now, sleep deeply, and know that, in this shared space of storytelling, you are part of something gentle, enduring, and warmly remembered. Good night.